Good evening. Today is December 28th. Every week we bring in the immigration updates for you. If you're on a non-immigrant visa and you haven't got the green card, this is the best source of the news that you need to. Every week we have 1 hour of question and answers on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Central Time. Along with me is my business partner, Reddy Neumann. Emily, what are we going to discuss today?
Yeah, this week we have major updates on visa stamping for those that have been waiting for slots to open up. We know consulates have been not giving many interview appointment slots, so we have good news about Dropbox availability being increased, so we'll talk about that. We also had an email from the Public Engagement Division of USCIS sent out letting people know that they're going to start allowing expedites of EADs specifically for healthcare workers. So I'll let you know the ins and outs of all of that. New numbers about the number of H1B workers that are in the US now compared to pre-COVID times and pre all of these travel bans and consulate closures, how the numbers have changed. And then looking at ideas for, should we go for the US green card or is it Canadian green card permanent residence better?
Let's discuss about the Dropbox, Emily. As I know that the Dropbox was, if I have a non-immigrant visa like H1 and H4, L1, L2, then if my visa has expired within 1 year, if I'm going for an extension though, I can go for the Dropbox, which doesn't require a personal interview. And I know that when Trump administration, because of the COVID, the visa, instead of expiring within 1 year after the expiration, I'm eligible for the Dropbox, they said you can do it within 2 years after the expiration. Then we got this Trump, Biden administration that come in and expanded that. Instead of 2 years of expiration, it's within 4 years of expiration. Now, of course, what my knowledge was that on December 31st of 2021, that ends, starting from January 1st of 2022, it's going to revert back to the 1 year, within 1 year of the visa expiration. So what is this new Dropbox visa waiver thing? What is that? Did it expand it beyond what is today? That means that right now, if within 4 years of my visa expiration, I can apply if I'm applying for the extension.
Yeah,
right?
2 major changes. So number one, the 4-year rule has been extended indefinitely. So instead of it ending at the end of this year, this week, now if your visa, the same category, has expired within the last 48 months, you would be eligible for Dropbox if you're going for the same visa classification in the future. That's extended indefinitely. So that's huge. But even bigger is now, if you've had any visa in the past where you weren't refused the visa at some point, you can be eligible for Dropbox now for any visa category.
Wait, Emily. Wait, what are you speaking? Let's say, for example, I came into United States on F1 visa, and now I got my H1 visa, H1 approved. So I can go to the consulate and be eligible for the Dropbox?
Right, because you originally came.
But I never had the H1B visa. I can still go for the Dropbox.
Exactly.
And what if I am on H4 visa and I'm applying for the, and I got the H1 approval, I go for the stamping for the H1B, I'm still eligible for the extension?
Yes.
What if I'm on H1B and I want to go for H4 visa if my spouse is on H1B? Am I still exempt for the Dropbox right now?
Yes.
Okay, what else?
This is through December 2022. So this is only a 1-year expansion.
That's because of the COVID.
Right.
So that's going to eliminate a lot of the rush that is going to the consulates, because most of the people are going there because they're changing their status from F1 to H1, H4 to H1, and some cases from H1 to H4 or F1 to H4. So all those people will be eliminated going to the line. That's going to reduce a drastic amount of load that's there for the personal interview. Normally, what I was being told is that it takes about 5 to 7 times extra work for the personal interview as compared to the Dropbox. So that's good news, Emily. What else is there in this Dropbox that people need to know?
Yeah, so you have to be applying in your country of residence or country of nationality. So wherever you got the visa before, when you're applying now, it has to be in your home country. And again, the timing of that first visa is irrelevant. The 4-year rule does not apply to this expansion of the rule. So you could have gotten your F1 visa over 5 years ago, been in the US, got your master's degree, then converted to H1, and now 5 years later, you're needing your H1B visa stamp. You are eligible to get that without having to appear for a personal interview. Now, a lot of people are thinking that this is maybe more than what it is. You do still have to get the visa stamp. Some people were thinking that, oh, I don't need stamping anymore. Still need the visa stamp, but you can get it without appearing in person for that interview, which will save a lot of resources and hopefully make it faster.
What if I came 10 years ago on F1 visa and about 5 years ago I converted into a H1B change of status? I never went outside the country. My passport visa expired more than 4 years ago on F1. I can still go for the visa waiver and Dropbox, Emily?
Yes.
With Dropbox further?
Yes.
That's a very good news, Emily. A lot of people will be. But at this point of time, there are not much appointments for the Dropbox either. Are they expanding anything, especially in India, for this Dropbox?
Yeah, so we do have a notation on the website for the embassy in India saying that they're about to open up 20,000 slots in spring of 2022 for the interview waiver Dropbox application. So that is good news. I don't know if 20,000 is enough considering all the backlog that
it's not enough, Emily. It's not enough.
For sure, it's not enough.
I can see that.
Yeah.
But maybe that's
progress.
a good step forward too. Because most of the backlogs are occurring in the visa stamping. Emily, a lot of people are not getting their times, especially people are traveling because they have some family emergencies, they're traveling. That's going to be good news for him. At least I would say that the amount of people who are going to the consulate from here, though, almost, we can't imagine anybody who is going from here who are not eligible for Dropbox right now, unless there is any problem with their particular kind of visa. Now, if I get an appointment with Dropbox, is it guaranteed that I'm going to get the visa?
No, that's the difficulty. Number one, getting the Dropbox, even when you meet all of the requirements, it seems to be discretionary. They're not opening it up for every single person who meets all of the requirements. And two, even if you do get the Dropbox appointment, they may still call you in for an interview. So it's not guaranteed visa stamping.
But I think so overall the rush is going to go down, especially for the appointments though. So for the people who are traveling from here though, 95% of the people that I can think about will be eligible for the Dropbox. As compared to previously, it was only maybe 40 to 50% of the people were eligible for Dropbox. Now 95% of the people will be eligible for Dropbox. So it's a very good news for a lot of people. You will be eligible. And the consulates have also acknowledged it, especially the US consulates in India have already said that they're opening it. So please use things. What we have been told is that openings are occurring somewhere in Thursdays and Fridays. That's when you have to look into the openings for the Dropbox. Almost everybody will fit into the Dropbox, the people who are traveling from here, because either you are an F1 visa, H1 visa, or H4 visa, and you are either getting any of these visas. So most of the people who are our audiences in Reddy Neumann PC, those who are in United States, will be eligible for the Dropbox appointment. Emily, can you speak more about the expedited EAD renewals for healthcare workers though? Now, please don't take it that this is an expedited for overall. It's only for healthcare workers. This information has been released today. Can you update about that?
Yeah, so number one, this is only for healthcare workers, and it's only for those that have a pending EAD. So this is not for delayed 485s. It's not a special process. It's not a new EAD. All it does is allow healthcare workers who have a pending EAD where the current EAD is set to expire within the next 30 days or has already expired. Now you're eligible to request an expedite of that EAD so that you can hopefully avoid your employment authorization expiring, because obviously with this ongoing pandemic, we need our healthcare workers to be able to work. It makes no sense to have people who are eligible to work and can help the situation be sitting at home because of USCIS delays. How does this work? The only option right now is to call the 1-800 contact number for USCIS and request that expedite as a healthcare worker. Be prepared to provide verification that you are in fact employed as a healthcare worker. Could be an employment verification letter with maybe a pay statement or W-2 or something like that. The one thing we don't know is how is this going to work for those that are also awaiting an H4 extension or an L2 extension, where the I-539 application and the I-765 application are filed together. And we know from the past several years that it's the H4 application, the I-539, that's causing the EAD to be delayed. The EAD, where it's just the standalone EAD, have been processed a little bit faster. So we don't know if USCIS will also expedite the H4 so that the EAD can be expedited and approved or not. We also don't know how this works with people who get the automatic EAD. When they're looking at, does your EAD expire in 30 days? Does that count the automatic 180-day extension for the green card EADs that are renewing? Does that count the new automatic extension for some H4s and L2s? Not a lot of detail in this. Definitely a step in the right direction. And the other thing to remember is these expedites are always discretionary. So there's no guarantees that just because you are a healthcare worker and your EAD is expiring in the next 30 days or already expired, that you will get the expedite. It's still discretionary.
The number of people who are in United States, according to the statistics, have gone down less than 500,000. This has been the least amount of people in H1B. What's the reasons, Emily?
Yeah, I think it's a number of things. We had, the H&L travel ban for quite some time under the Trump administration. And then we started having the individual country travel bans, which India obviously is a big user of H1B visas. So with India being under lockdown and not able to travel into the US, that's been a huge factor. And now on top of that, the lack of consulate interview appointments. All of that has combined to reduce the number of people who have been able to get back into the US who were previously on H1, and then for those that were outside the US coming in for the first time have not been able to get the visa since before March 2020 practically. So that definitely had a big impact.
Yeah, now I think so. Going forward, Emily, there may be more people will be down because of the adjustment of status, EAD. Some of the people have already moved out of H1B. Some of the people may be moving out of H1B. I think so next year also, though, even though there will be more inflow coming because of the visa appointments opening, though, there may be some inflow of the new H1Bs coming. Then also some of the people who are in adjustment of status will move out of the adjustment of status. Mm-hmm. Coming to the main question, Emily, how long it's taking for the US, if things remain as it is, because now the immigration reform at least seems to be going forward. How long it's going to take for a person to get the green card? Do you advise people to still apply for the green card in USA or not?
Well, with things the way they are, and with the 7% cap and the number of people filing, we crunched the numbers several years ago and said, I think it's going to be close to 100 years for someone who is starting the process to actually receive the green card.
But Cato Institute said you're wrong by 42 years, Emily.
Right, they said it's even worse. And so we're back in that situation now to where we have so many people applying, filing the labor certification every year, filing the I-140 every year, and then because of that 7% cap and because of wasted green cards, because they're counting spouses and family members, we're not able to move forward and actually give people the green card. So yes, coming to the USA, the American dream, that's what everyone wants. But I think the most important thing is to come in with your eyes wide open on what to expect right now, given the current circumstances.
Recently, USCIS has released the statistics. Approximately around 380,000 people who are Indian nationals are waiting for the green card where their I-140 is approved. From the time the data has been released to right now, at least 20,000 more people have filed. So people are going to file right now, though, if based on the data of 400,000 people there, though, with 10,000 people to get the green card every year. So that will take approximately 80 years. Oh, why is it 80 years, 400,000? Is because 5,000, the spouses will be counted and children will be counted. That's the reason it's going to be 80 years. So definitely it's going to be a long time. We do expect some of the green cards to be granted this year because we have extra 140,000 extra green cards available this year, or 140,000 extra green cards available this year. So if we get any of this inflow, the things may move forward. Otherwise, for the people who are applying right now, it will take a long time. My advice to people is that you may want to consider Canada though, because personally, coming from an immigration background, I don't want to be I don't want to be speaking with immigration lawyers every now and then. I don't want to be watching this channel every week to see whether I'm going to be fine next year or not. So definitely, if anybody wants to plan to apply for Canadian green cards, you can. Our office does not process. This is not promoting our office, guys. I personally myself feel that since the people who are going to apply for the green card may want to consider thinking about Canada too. This year in 2021 though, the Canadians have given more green cards than they have ever done it. I mean, with the COVID and everything going on. While in the US, it's completely different. We have given less number of green cards than ever given, if you count the family members too. So you may want to consider this is not, we're not trying to promote ourselves. Our office does not do Canadian immigration. Do not contact us. We have no experience in it. What we are being only told is what other people have given the input, how much time it takes, what is the process involved in it. Based on that, I can tell that it's way simpler, the time is very less compared to get the green card in the United States. You may want to consider that. Let's go to some of the questions and answer some of the people are facing is that, especially a lot of questions on the Dropbox. The gentleman is asking, hey, I've been on F1. I got this October 2021. I got the H1B approved. Am I waived? Am I eligible for the Dropbox? Absolutely yes. There's a question that comes out that what about the persons who have never applied for their visa? They are trying to come first time into the United States. They are not eligible for the Dropbox. RK is asking the question, is the Dropbox eligibility there in Canada? It's only for the locals. I'm assuming that you, RK, you are from India, so the Dropbox eligibility will not be there if you're not applying in Canada. It's only for those people who are in Canada.
Dreamer from YouTube asks, I filed my AOS in November, my H1B renewal in April in regular processing. Do you recommend premium processing? I think it depends on a few things. Number one would be, is your final action date current for that AOS? Because with the H1B extension pending, it does provide you with automatic work authorization for up to 240 days after your current H1B expires. So if it's highly likely that you'll get your 485 approved within those 240 days, then there's really no need to opt for the premium processing. Other things to consider is your driver's license expiring. Do you have the EAD from your AOS yet? So those are some of the factors to consider. It may not be necessary to do it, just kind of depends on those circumstances.
I see a question here, Emily, and this question just came out for as soon as we were able to figure it out that people from F1 to H1 are eligible to get the waiver, and I said to my cousin, hey, your wife is eligible, why doesn't she apply for it, for the Dropbox? And he asked a question, and I see the same question here. It's definitely not my cousin, the name is different here. Is that they have an appointment already for the regular interview. Should they cancel the appointment and book the Dropbox appointment?
Great question.
Our problem is that if you cancel the appointment, you book it again. What if you don't get the appointment soon? That's my problem. We don't know if the 20,000, when they're going to be open, and if they're going to be open, how long it's going to get to fill out, whether you're going to be eligible for it. That is a debatable question for me. So would I cancel the existing appointment? I would not. What do you say?
Yeah, I think I agree with you because we just don't know. Even though you might be eligible, again, it's still discretionary. So you might cancel this and go through resubmitting the DS-160 and not be actually given the option to do the Dropbox. it doesn't pop up for everyone. So I would be hesitant to cancel.
One of the things that I'm looking forward for this Dropbox, Emily, if the appointments are open very much, especially for the 180 days EAD rule. Can you explain that, Emily?
Right.
That's going to be very good for people.
Exactly. Yeah, that's one of the things. So with the automatic H4 EAD extension and automatic L2 EAD extension, we've talked about before, in the situation where the main applicant spouse, the H1 or the L1 holder, files their extension and receives that in premium processing quickly before the current H1 and H4 and L1 and L2 and EAD all expire, having this Dropbox option would allow the spouse to then exit, get the H4 or L2 stamped using the Dropbox, come back, and then they will have the further validity of their I-94, which authorizes them for the auto extension of the EAD for up to 180 days while they're waiting for that EAD renewal to be processed. So that can, be a major help to people who have been trying to figure out how to take advantage of that 180-day auto extension.
My last visa got stamped in Canada. Do I still qualify for the Dropbox?
So from what I've seen, they only discuss now in this new announcement, they only mentioned that the visa you're applying for now, you have to apply in your country of residence or nationality.
But it doesn't say anything about when
Right.
you got the previous visa.
Exactly, which it was the
Previously
situation previously.
for the Dropbox, though, that if you have applied previous visa in the home consulate, you will be eligible for the Dropbox. But when this new statement came in, it doesn't say that your previous visa has to be from the home consulate. We yet have to see how they are going to interpret, though. But right now, the reading, according to us, says that even if you got the stamping in Canada, you should be eligible. But we have to look into the discretion of the consulate office. And we will update you, Amit, about this later on, how the things are turning out. Harsha is asking question, can we do the Dropbox while in USA? No, you have to leave the country to be eligible for Dropbox. I just want to remind people that if you are going to post multiple messages, though, you will be, we put a flag on you so that we don't read the messages, though. Please make sure that you only leave one message. Don't try to respond to the other people, guy, because I hope so. We are trained people, we'll respond. That's another thing. You may be getting flagged out. We recently unflagged a lot of people, so please try not to leave multiple messages. Leave only one message, because if you leave multiple messages, we have a team of people that are blocking, so that we pay attention to the people who are leaving only one message.
Okay. Sanjith wants to know, can a person who has an H4 EAD work 2 full-time jobs? Absolutely. You can work as much as you want with an H4 EAD. It is completely unrestricted.
Yeah, I used to work as a legal assistant, and I used to work as a pizza delivery person when I had a EAD and adjustment of status EAD. I was doing both jobs for a while. Monica has this question. Client name is misspelled in LCA, but LCA H1B got approved. Will that be an issue in going for the Dropbox? I don't think so. That would be an issue. You should be fine.
Sam has an I-140 that was originally approved for consular processing, and now he applied for adjustment of status instead, and wants to know if he needs to request the National Visa Center to transfer the I-140 file back. I've never seen a need to do that. It should happen automatically once the 485 is filed.
Are the tourist visa people eligible for the Dropbox? If they have previously been issued a tourist visa and they haven't violated their status or got any rejection, definitely they are eligible for the Dropbox. Tourist visas were always eligible for the Dropbox. There's nothing new about it. The only new thing is that even if their visa has expired more than 4 years ago, they are still eligible for the Dropbox. That's the only new news that came out. They were always eligible for Dropbox for the extensions.
Madura has an H4 and H4 EAD in process, flew to Mexico, and was able to get the extended I-94 based on the spouse's H1B I-797, which we've talked about using automatic revalidation to do that. The current EAD is expiring in January and wants to know, am I eligible for the automatic 180-day extension to continue my job? Yes, you are, because you now have an I-94 that's valid beyond your current EAD validity, and you filed the EAD renewal before your current EAD expires. From January, you would have that 180-day auto extension until your new EAD gets approved. And yes, I would suggest sending in your new I-94 to the EAD application through the interfile process, in the hopes that they will just approve that EAD, since you don't necessarily need the H4 extension anymore.
Question from Idura Sasikala. L2 visa stamped in India. Now change of status has been done, going for H1B. Am I eligible for the dropbox? Absolutely spot on. You are eligible for dropbox. Very good question from Tripti. What is the timeline involved? Do you need previous booking required for dropbox? The question is, you have to book an appointment for dropbox, Tripti. The timeline depends on, especially for booking the appointment, it may be 1 month to 4 months. And right now, when you open the website and when you go in there, you may not be able to find. You have to keep on trying. You have to keep on trying. They normally open sometimes, and you have to be there at that time to get those things. So once you get the booking, though, the whole process for you to drop and get the visa, the entire process might take approximately a week's time, not more than that, typically, though.
Premnand wants to know, he filed an AOS refile under EB2 in December to the Chicago lockbox. Still no receipt notice. How long does it currently take to get a receipt? Yes, we are seeing those delays since you filed just earlier this month. It could take 8 weeks or more for what we're seeing to get the receipt notice. Even the checks, the filing fee checks, are taking that long just to be cashed. So it is very anxious waiting, because you don't know if it was filed properly and accepted. But we are seeing those delays of at least 8 weeks in getting the receipt notices.
Bhargav has this question. A short drive trip to Canada, will that affect the I-131 which is pending? He's speaking about advance parole. Yes, it may affect your advance parole. I would recommend as soon as you come back to actually refile the advance parole. That is in your best interest.
Jelly Mail says, I have my visa renewed in the US in 2016 and then in 2019. Didn't go to India in between. Will I get a Dropbox? So when you say visa renewal, I'm assuming you mean your status was extended, because the visa is the stamp that's in your passport, and you can only get a new one of those if you travel outside the US, visit the consulate, and come back. So you came to the US on some type of visa. Then you filed an extension or a change of status, extended again in 2019 under this new provision. Because you were previously granted a visa to enter the US, you are eligible for Dropbox. But the extensions that you filed in between were not visa renewals, they were status extensions.
Question from Suresh and Praveen, same question. The person got a 221G. Are they still eligible for the Dropbox? Yes. 221G is just, they're asking, it's an administrative processing. It's not a denial. As long as the visa has not been denied, though, then you're fine. You are still eligible for the Dropbox.
Ram Prasad says his wife is on H4 with no EAD, and she's an RN. Her potential employer already filed a concurrent I-140, 485, 765 back in October, and wants to know if that EAD can be expedited. Well, the announcement from USCIS talks about EAD renewals, and it says if your EAD expired within the last 30 days or more than 30 days ago, or is expiring in the next 30 days, you can request an expedite under this new provision. That doesn't mean that you can't request the expedite now based on being a healthcare worker, but it doesn't squarely fit within what they were trying to do in this announcement. No harm in trying, though.
Mihika Sharma has this question. Visa extended first time, then changed the employer, and then changed to B1, B2, and then changed to H1. Am I still eligible for the Dropbox? Yes. If you have any US visa in your passport, any US visa, previously any US visa, you're eligible for the Dropbox as long as your visa never got rejected in the consulate.
VK has filed an H1 transfer and to a new employer that's already approved. The H4 is expiring in July, and he wants to know if he can apply the H4 and EAD extension now, or if he has to wait until it's 180 days prior to expiration because you didn't file together. We've not seen any problem with filing earlier than the 180 days for an H4 and H4 EAD, especially given these processing times. They're not likely to get to it before it expires, so I don't see a problem with filing it now.
Pawan has this question: am I eligible for the drop box? I haven't been to stamping for 7 years. Assuming, Pawan, you are in United States. Assuming, Pawan, of course you are. Assuming, Pawan, you didn't jump the wall to come into United States. You either came on F1, either you came on B2, either you come on H4, or you might have come on H1. Mostly these are the possibility, or L1, L2. If any of these non-immigrant visas, you came into United States, you entered legal states on a passport visa, and now you maintain the status, you're going for stamping, you are eligible for stamping. Even if your passport visa, you're eligible for the drop box. Even if your passport visa is expired 5 years ago, you are still eligible for the stamping. Even if your passport visa is for a different category, for example, it's F1 and now you're going for H1, you are still eligible for the passport stamping. Even if you had a H1B before with a different company and now you are going with H1B for a different company, you are still eligible for the drop box.
Tarun has an employer, I'm assuming, who's going to be filing an H1 transfer, but will not be filing the H4 extension for your wife because her current visa is valid till October. And he wants to know, is that a problem? Will it cause any issues in filing the green card? So for the H4 dependent, when you're filing an H1 transfer, it's not mandatory to file the H4 extension along with your transfer. It's a good idea to do it so that you both always have the same end date, and due to the long processing times of the H4, since they no longer approve it with the H1, but it's not mandatory to do it. The main thing is before October 2022, she'll need to file an extension of the H4, and that can be done standalone. It doesn't have to be filed with your H1.
Questions with regards to suggestions actually is, can you please bring attention to the people of the backlogs of the Nebraska and Texas Service Center? Yeah, we are aware of it, of course, and the gentleman goes by Nebraska Husker. Yes, we are well aware of it. We have campaigned for it. We have drafted letters for it. A lot of people criticize that whatever we do, nothing works. I don't know. We feel that it works. If you look into Mr. Nebraska Husker, if you look into the adjudication of the 485, though, in the first 3 quarters of the 2021, that is ending of about July of 2021, August, September, October, no, June of 2021. And compared to the last quarter of 2021, in the last quarter, they adjudicated more than what they adjudicated in the first 3 quarters. If they go in the same pace of adjudication, though, we'll be in a better shape. But at the same time, we need to campaign for it. There is a draft letter that we have created. We have put it there at the bottom. I'm assuming that you have written that letter. We recommend all the people who are in this, who are listening to this, would write a letter, and please, Mr. Nebraska Husker, please give that draft letter to all the people so that they can write to the congressmen, to the senators, to the USCIS, and also to the ombudsman. The draft of the letter is there so that we don't waste the green cards that are given to us this year.
Vignesh has an H1B extension that was filed November 23rd and still has not received the receipt. He wants to know, is there a delay at USCIS to issue the receipts? I've not seen that much of a delay for H1B receipt notices for extensions. So that seems a bit unusual. That's something that you'll want to check with your employer and their attorney about to see if, perhaps the application was rejected for some reason. Maybe you need to look into filing it again, especially if your current status is expiring soon, because you don't want to get into a situation where after your status expires, that petition got rejected and it took several weeks to get it back. For whatever reason, it happens. and then you're out of status at the time of refiling, and they don't take into consideration that first filing date unless it was a USCIS error. So something seems to be amiss there.
Can a healthcare worker expedite the Gceid while currently working on H4 Ead? Question for Parko. Yes, why not? The only question is that you are in healthcare and you're a healthcare worker. So yes, absolutely. Just because you previously had H4 Ead and now you are asking for Gceid, no problem for it. Santosh Kumar has this question, I-797C consular processing, am I eligible for the drawbox? The main question is that what's the reason why you got the I-797? We need to look into the reason why you got the I-797. It could be that you're outside the country, or it could be that you may have violated the status, then it's a different issue. But if everything is fine, you're in legal status, you applied for the consular processing intentionally, yes, definitely you are eligible for drawbox.
Suraj, who has an H4 that's about to expire in 6 months, but recently traveled and got the I-94 updated to match the spouse's H1B end date, which is in 2023. And he asked, do I need to apply for an H4 extension now? No, since you already received the extended status by the I-94 when you entered into the US, that's your new I-94. The old I-94 doesn't matter if that's expiring anymore. You've already got your extension without having to file the I-539.
Ramna from Facebook is asking the question, when does this rule be effective? I'm assuming you're asking about the drawbox. It's effective immediately. There is nothing there. It's effective ASAP, today itself. You can go for it.
Monica says the client name is misspelled in the LCA.
I addressed it.
Sorry about that.
Do we have a status on the country cap removal bill in the Senate? No, we don't. It's not moving anywhere for sure at this point of time. Most probably next year, starting when the Congress resumes, we'll have to see. We have to fight for that. That probably is the best route for us.
Srini wants to know, are there any success cases with litigation on 485 EADs or H4 EADs? How long does it take for approval from the litigation start date? Well, for the H4 EAD, that is all tied up in the ongoing class action lawsuit. So we're still waiting for the outcome of that case. On 485 EADs, it's too soon to know whether those are going to be successful or not. Those cases are currently pending.
Patel from YouTube has this question, when is this new rule will be? Because they're seeing the interview slot options when they are probably filling out. It may take a little bit time for them to apply it online. Maybe the computer programmers, most of our audiences are computer program. When the rule comes in, you have to implement it. If they click this box, it has to go that way. That could be done probably. I'm expecting it to be done by end of this week. That's the most that I'm thinking, maybe early part of next week. It's just that they have to tweak the computer, the software thing to reflect the Dropbox option. It may take a little bit time. So if you are getting the option of making an appointment right now, if it's telling you to go to the interview, maybe I'll wait for a week or so, Emily, before I make an appointment though. But for those people who already made an appointment, I wouldn't cancel it. I mean, make a new one in the Dropbox right now, but if you're making it, it's asking you to go for an interview. Wait for next week. We'll update you next week when the systems are working though.
Karthik wants to know, what is the difference between an RFIE and an RFE?
What is that?
Is it possible to receive an RFE after an RFIE? That's a lot of alphabet there, but the RFIE, I think you're referring to, is request for initial
information.
And the RFE is request for evidence. So RFIE, an example would be you filed an I-485 without your birth certificate. Birth certificate is mandatory evidence that everybody has to submit. It's considered initial evidence. So before they're even going to look into their case, they're going to send a request for initial evidence asking for that birth certificate. It is still possible to get an RFE after they send an RFIE. Usually we don't see two on that many. It's not that common that you get two of these types of requests, but it's possible. Ankush wants to know, what is the timeline for seeing perm applications I refiled in December through a new employer? I would say 7 months for the approvals.
June, July is a time that it's taking right now. Praveen, after most of the questions are repeated, so Shiva Ali has, after getting the GC, can company revoke GC? No, unless there is a fraud involved in it, and if there's a fraud involved in it, they are involved in that too. So no, if that's the case, that's going to be tough. The only reason why you are given the green card is you completely are free to do whatever you want to. Once you get the green card, you can be a Microsoft CEO, flip a burger, or be a lawyer like me. Anything you can do it. Absolutely no conditions. They can't revoke it unless, for example, you have provided a fake degree certificate. Yeah, definitely they can request USCIS to revoke it. Otherwise, I mean, I can't imagine the circumstances where the company can even write a letter. What authority? They don't have any authority to revoke your green card.
Ambi has an H1 expiring in August, along with his wife's H4 and H4 EAD, and will be filing the extension in the next few months. He wants to know, will she be eligible for the automatic H4 EAD 180-day extension to continue to work? So just filing the H1 and H4 and H4 EAD extension does not make her eligible for the automatic 180-day extension. She has to get an I-94 that's extended beyond her current EAD in order for the automatic extension to kick in. Right now, we see two possible ways of that happening. Number one is once you get your H-1B approval, you try to both travel to Canada or Mexico using automatic revalidation, in return showing your extended H-1B approval, and she can hopefully get the H-4 extended I-94 through that process. Or with now that we have the Dropbox expansion, once you have your H-1B extension approved, she can then apply for an H-4 visa stamp without requiring the interview, get that stamp more quickly, come back in, and then she'll have the new I-94 that will provide her with that 180-day extension.
Rajan has this question. My GC EAD got approved, not GC but GC EAD, and my EAD, my wife's EAD is still pending. Can I change the employer using I-485J? Absolutely, no problem with it. Just because you change the employer will not affect your wife's EAD under any circumstances. Ravi Nagala has this question. My son is an F1, would like to do extra semester. Does he need to go apply for restamping again? Your question is that your son's passport visa is expiring and he is going to do an extra semester beyond the passport visa expiration. Absolutely he can, no problem. He can extend one more semester. He does not need to go for stamping. For him to stay in this country, do an extra semester, no. He just need to make sure that the I-20 is extended, the DSO is well informed, and that's about it. No need for going for stamping at all.
Rakesh wants to know, how long does it take to receive the H4 EAD if we file the H4 and EAD along with the H1 renewal in premium? So the premium processing does nothing to speed up the H4 and the EAD renewal. They don't process them all together anymore. Processing times for the H4 and EAD are still at least 6 months, probably closer to 10 months for a lot of cases.
Praveen Kumar is asking this question. What is an I-94? Can you please explain? Pawan from YouTube is asking. Pawan, when you come on a non-immigrant visa into United States, though, the CBP, Customs and Border Protection Unit, will issue an I-94 telling until what time you can stay in this country. Even though it's a basic question, it has a lot of meaning in it, I want everybody to follow what I'm telling about. So for example, if your parents are coming on a B2 visa, and they have a 10-year multiple entry visa, when they enter into this country, how long will they be allowed to stay? Typically, they will be given 6 months, but sometimes they may even be given 1 month, 2 months, depending on the discretion of the officer, though. So it is not the passport visa that will allow the person to come into United States and stay in United States. It's not only the passport visa, the I-94 should be there. Even if the passport visa is valid for the next 10 years, they can only stay for a period of time that is there on the I-94. Where do you get the I-94? When you come into the country, the I-94 is not given to you. It will be online. You have to go online. You can just Google it, I-94, and you have to enter your passport, basic information, and the I-94 will appear there. For all the people who are coming into United States, my sincere advice is please check your I-94 within 1 week after entering into the United States. We see a lot of problems. I mean, about 20% of the problems that we get it is because they don't look into the I-94 until very late. Especially if you, let's say for example, your passport is expiring in 2021 September and your visa, that means that let's say H4 visa is expiring in September of 2022 and you entered in July of 2021. Sometimes the CBP may only give the I-94 validity only until September 2021. That means that if you stayed in the country after September 2021, then you are staying unlawfully in this country though. You must have filed an extension before your I-94 expires. This is the most common mistake that we see, is that the I-94 has been reduced and people refused, they did not look into online. So please, that's very important to check everybody's I-94 online though. Especially when you enter into United States, that's when you have to be very careful. Every time you enter into United States, go check your I-94.
Mohan is on L2 and wants to know, do I need to wait for the EAD approval, or with the new rule, am I eligible for work? Unfortunately, the new rule is not implemented yet. And the reason for that is because your L2 I-94 just says L2. It does not say L2 spouse. It's only the L2 spouses that will receive that automatic EAD upon receiving L2 status. But until CBP and USCIS work together to start issuing new I-94s that say L2 spouse instead of just L2, you're going to need the EAD to be able to work.
Question, what happens if the interfiling and refiling request is sent when the dates are current in filing and not in final action dates? Sweta, though, sweet seller, sorry. One advice that I would give is that if the final action date is not current, don't interfile. It's nothing illegal when you interfile though. It is nothing illegal. But I would strongly recommend don't interfile. The reason is that when you interfile, you're telling them to adjudicate the 482 application. If the final action date is not current, they cannot. Yeah, refiling probably is an option that you can do when the filing dates are current, but interfiling I would not. But if somebody does it, what will happen? Nothing will happen. I mean, you're not going to get the green card until the final action date is current. They may take into consideration of this interfiling, but depends on the officer's caseload. They will take time to input that data into their computer system because they need to change a lot of things inside to get you the green card through a different basis than what you actually file. That is what interfiling is. When it's refiling though, I mean, they'll process the application for EAD, advanced parole, and will generally just process that one.
Kamal has an H1B extension in progress and his wife's H4 and EAD were applied with it concurrently. He wants to know, if I change employers now before that I-94 expires, what will happen to the in-progress H4 and H4 EAD applications? So in theory, they should continue to be processed based on your transfer approval. In reality, many times we see that when you leave the old employer, they may withdraw the pending extension. And the withdrawal of that pending extension may automatically lead USCIS to deny the H4 and the EAD renewal on the grounds that you don't have that H1B extension, even though you've got your H1 extended with another employer. So I would generally recommend file another H4 and EAD along with your transfer to avoid that situation.
Question from Praveen, received Rfie by mail directly to my email, to my home address for the EB3 downgrade. Can I respond directly? Do I have to go through a lawyer? my personal suggestion is, if the RFE is about medical though, that's up to your discretion whether you want to respond to the RFE though. I mean, my clients, I tell them, hey, if it's about medical, just you respond to it. Anyway, I can't even open the medical and take a look into that medicals. What good I am. But I keep telling them that they need to give the tracking number to me. That's what I normally do though. But if it's anything other than medical though, I would strongly advise you do not respond to it. Have it go through a lawyer. Don't let it go.
Nikhil has an employer who changed their name and has then been acquired by another employer. So his I-797 has the old company name. He submitted the DS-160 that has both the old name and the new name, but didn't mention anything about the acquisition. Will there be an issue? Well, the acquisition really depends on whether, the ownership of the company can change without actually changing the tax ID number or the name of the company. So if that is the situation, who owns the company is not really relevant, as long as it's a U.S. employer that has an H-1B approval. If the acquisition involved some kind of name change or some kind of tax ID number change, then number one, the new employer needs to determine whether they're a successor in interest and they've taken care of all of the requirements there. They should then issue you a letter to carry to your appointment that explains what acquisition occurred, so they can show that they still qualify for this H-1B approval.
Surabhi Verma from YouTube has this question. We have seen a mad rush in October of 2020 for the downgrade. Absolutely, we all agree on that. We are on the same page. Now her question is, have you seen the upgrades in the same fashion what we have seen the downgrades in October of 2020? No, actually, we don't see the mad rush like the same way what we have seen for upgrades. It's only the people who fall between the January 2012 to July 2012. Those are the people that are actually, we can see some of those people requesting that, but we haven't seen the mad rush of upgrading it to EB2. We haven't seen Surabhi. That's a good question that you asked though. But we have seen, so we have done some interfilings from EB3 again back to EB2. We have filed a lot of refilings, but it's not like everybody who is eligible for refiling, they did not refile into EB2. They're still waiting cautiously to see when the final action date moves so that they can take action at that time. But it's not like the mad rush what it was in October. We haven't seen that thing right now. I would say that about 15 to 20% of the people probably did interfiling or refiling, but not 100% of the people who are eligible. They haven't done it. That's my observation.
RK says his initial I-140 was filed with Company A, and then Company B ported that priority date. Now Company B has been acquired by Company C. Do I need to file anything to port the I-140 to Company C? Possibly. So if the Company B no longer exists because they've been merged into Company C, for example, there's been some kind of change in corporate structure or the tax ID number has changed, Company C, number one, has to determine whether they are qualified as a successor in interest to continue the process. And if they are required to file an I-140 amendment to show that they are a successor in interest, to prove that they're continuing to offer the same job under the same terms and conditions, and to show that they have the continued ability to pay the salary from the date of acquisition going forward. So that I-140 amendment is required when there is a successor in interest for the I-140.
Rajeshwar is asking this question: what's the scheduling for biometric appointment who has applied in October 2021? I mean, Rajeshwar, we have seen people who applied in October 2021 already got the green cards. We have seen some of them who filed in October 2020 have still not got their biometrics yet. That's how the variety is there. There is nothing called first come and first serve in USCIS. So it's a very, very vague way and we can't define why it's happening. Mostly if it's a Texas Service Center, it's definitely very bad. If it is the National Benefit Center where your things start with MSC, things are going much better. Guru Kumar has this question: can I be tied to Gceid because my wife's can I be tied to my Gceid? My wife's Gceid is pending. She's currently on H4 Ead. Yeah, if you are got a Gceid and your wife is on H4 Ead and she did not get the Gceid yet, though, don't use the Gceid because you are now moving to adjustment of status and your wife cannot use the H4 Ead. So wait until she gets the H4 Ead. Gceid.
Srinivas wants to know, how does successor and interest I-140 affect AC-21? Should I wait for the new I-140 to be approved before changing jobs? So I'm assuming you filed the I-140 amendment to show the successor and interest and the 485. That 485 being pending for 180 days does make you eligible for AC-21. It's not mandatory that you wait for that I-140 to be approved, but it is a good idea because if there are any RFEs raised on that I-140 after you've left the company, it can be much more difficult. You have to prove that that amended I-140 was approvable at the time of filing, which you have no access to any of those documents since it's the company that filed that and you're no longer with that company. So it's best to wait until the I-140 gets approved before taking advantage of AC-21.
Ashish has this question: can I travel outside USA with Gceid and advance parole when my 485 is pending? If yes, what documents do I need to carry in order to re-enter? Absolutely. If you have a Gceid and advance parole, please make sure that on the EAD card it says advance parole I-131 approval. As long as that says that thing, that card by itself, of course, your passport, I don't have to tell you about that. These two things, passport and the advance parole, these two things are absolute necessary documents for you to come back. Normally, they don't check anything else other than that. If you want to carry for your satisfaction, 485 receipt notice doesn't have to be original, but the advance parole, make sure it's original. You can carry anything, rest of it just for your satisfaction though. One thing that pops up to a lot of people on the advance parole: oh, when I traveled in advance parole, they took me to a small room, made me wait there for 45 minutes. I was so scared. And they let me out on the advance parole. That happens most of the airports though. It's nothing wrong about it. For most of the airports though, they don't have the processing capacity for the advance parole when you enter into it. They do have for the they do have for the H1s, they do have for H4s, they do have for the green cards, but unfortunately not for advance parole. So they take you, the officer will come and escort you, will take you to a small room where you have to wait. It doesn't happen with all airports, with some of the airports it happens. But that's nothing wrong about it. It's just a process though. So when you enter into this country, I know you already traveled 24 hours and then now you go into a small room and there are a couple of other people whom, they maybe drug dealers that they have suspected of. And you definitely, they don't keep you in that room though, but they will take you a separate room. It's nothing normal. When I inspected the CBP, they took the tour and I've seen those facilities, how they are, it's called soft secondary. That's where you'll be. And I've also seen these American couple going and adopting the children coming from South American countries, carrying little babies. They also take them to that little rooms, the same room that you will be going into for the advance parole. So it's nothing bad. It's just the process that is involved in it. But otherwise, advance parole, we don't see much problems in having people enter into the United States advance parole. Not at all.
All right, well, I think we are out of time for this week. Thanks so much for joining us. As usual, we'll be back every Tuesday at 5 o'clock Central Time. And if you want to get the latest updates, you can always subscribe to our newsletter by going to rnlawgroup.com. We send that out on every Wednesday.
Thank you for tuning in.